Hi, my name's Helen Kellock and I'm an author and illustrator from Glasgow, and I'm here today to talk to you about what it's like to be a children's picture book maker. My first picture book came out last year. It's called The Star in the Forest, and it was inspired by many walks around Pollock Park here in Glasgow, and so I thought today I'd read to you from the book here in the park itself. So let's do that right now. The Star in the Forest by Helen Kellock. Maisie and Pip sat in the snug warmth of their grandparents' cottage, deciding how to spend the first night of their holiday. Pip was happy to wait and watch the stars appear one by one across the clear night sky. But even though Maisie loved the stars as much as her big sister, she did not love waiting. Maisie dreamed of something exciting, a shiny new discovery, a spectacular adventure. Stargazing and hot chocolate were not it. As she stared out into space, she willed something to happen. Suddenly, a bright flash lit up the sky. "What was that?" Maisie squealed. She sprung into action at once. Maybe it was a rocket ship or a creature from outer space. "Wait, Maisie," shouted Pip. "There's no time to wait. We've got to find out." Maisie and Pip had often played in the forest, but in the gloomy dusk, everything looked different. "Did you hear that?" whispered Pip nervously. "It's just a fox, Pip." Maisie pressed ahead as true adventurers do. She chattered excitedly as they picked their way through the tangle. "What do you think it was that fell from the sky, Pip? It lit up the forest like a sparkly jewel. It could be the biggest, shiniest space jewel anyone has ever seen." Pip stared up into the trees. She began to wonder if she and Maisie were not alone. "Look up, Maisie. Do you see something?" said Pip. "It's just owls, Pip. Come on, hurry up." They crawled through the thickets. They peered through hollows. All they found were grubs and bugs. But something had lit up the sky, and Maisie was determined to find out what. From up high, Maisie spied a glow in a clearing below. At last! Maisie jumped through the air and ran like thunder. What could it be, she wondered wildly. Space jewels? A UFO? An alien? But when at last Maisie reached the clearing, she found none of these. "Pip!" she called out through the shadows. "Pip!" Pip had followed behind at a Pip-like pace, taking in the magic of the forest around them. "You found it! What is it?" "It's just a lump of cold nothing," Maisie grumbled. "Let's go home." "Wait a minute," said Pip, peering closer. I think it might be a fallen star." "A star? Wow, a star! You're right, Pip. It's a magical meteorite all the way from outer space." Maisie followed Pip's wandering pace back home. She looked up and finally saw the glowing fireflies and heard the soft hoot of the owls. The forest, like their star, sparkled all around. "I can't wait to find out what tomorrow's adventure will be," Maisie grinned. Thanks for listening. We're now going to go back to my home studio where I'm going to talk to you a bit about how I made the book itself. I'm going to show you some of my sketchbooks and around my studio and answer some of your questions. So let's go there now. Hi, here we are in my studio at home, and this is where I do all of my book work. I do all of the writing, the illustrating, which involves painting, drawing, coming up with ideas, and then editing those drawings on the computer and my laptop, so to kind of clean things up at the end. So this is where it all happens. I have all of my books that I reference. I have drawers full of different kinds of papers, different kinds of paints I meant to say, paints and pens and pencils, all sorts of things that I might want to use, all spread around all over the place, and all of my sketchbooks scattered around the room. So yes, I thought I would first, I was sent some questions from some of you folks, so let's go through them just now. Hannah asks, how do you come up with your ideas? That is a very good question and quite difficult to answer actually. I keep lots of different books. This one is called my idea book, where whenever I'll take this in my backpack when I'm out, no matter where I go, and if an idea pops into my head, no matter how good or bad it is, I'll quickly scribble it down. So if I'm on the train or just even at the shops and something pops into my head, I always have a book handy to write down an idea. And I collect ideas from all aspects of life. For the Star in the Forest, the book that I just read to you, I go walks in the park almost every day in Pollock Park, and when I was walking through the park one day, I started to imagine two little girls walking through the park with torches at night, and started to imagine what they might find, and the book developed from there. I also keep lots and lots of sketchbooks where I'll just draw things I see from life, or that I've imagined, and then sometimes in a drawing I'll see a potential for a character or a book idea, and maybe one of the little scribbles on the side of a page. It could be from anything. Alison asks, how long does it take to write and publish a book? Longer than you think. Longer than I thought anyway. So to write, when you're approaching a publisher, you usually come forward with an idea for a book that you've got in quite a rough but quite a formed, it should be relatively formed. So I had, for my book, The Star in the Forest, I drew black and white sketches of each page of how I imagined the story would flow, and I wrote the text for it as well, and then I did some sample pages that I painted, so like 2 or 3 from the book, and that took me to get to a place that was good enough to show to a publisher. Took me a few months actually, and that was me after having studied art for many years, to get to a point that the work was good enough. And then when the book was commissioned, commission means for the publisher to say that they want to buy the book and work with you on it to get it out into the shops. You then work with a team of editors and the sales team and all other people in the publishing house, and we go back and forth to make sure that the book is as strong as it can be. That's looking through all the words and the rough sketches of each page, and then that can take a few months of going back and forth and making changes, and then when that is all ticked off, everybody thinks, yep, we're happy, that looks good enough, then it then all gets handed over to me and I do all the final artwork. And for me, I do all my work by hand, so rather than doing everything digitally on the computer, I paint and I can show you some of the paintings actually. I paint the paintings themselves on big sheets of paper using a mixture of paints, pencils, crayons to build up the picture. And then all of these get sent down to, well, in my case down to London, where they were photographed and then edited by the team in London, the publishing team. And then it's got to go through all the sort of printing. People need to check that the colours are just right. It goes to the printing house, and that can take a while. And then there's back and forth and more on the publisher's end. I need to just kind of sign off that I think everything looks good as well. And then things start to, the publishers work with this sales team to get the book out to shops and reviewers, etc. So long story short, from the time that a publisher says yes, we'd like to work with you on this book, the book, it might not be out for another year, sometimes even 2 years, depending on what the project is like. So quite a long time, but it's well worth it, and working with a team of other people on the book always makes sure the book is as strong and as good as it can be. Flora asks, what is my favourite word? That is such a good question. I think recently I read in a book the word smur, the Scottish word smur, and I hadn't thought about that word in a while, and when I read it I was like, oh, that's such a good word. Smur is the word, if you didn't know, for when the rain, the kind of special rain we get here in Scotland that is so drizzly, so fine, that it kind of, that it's just all in the air and it soaks you right through to the skin, so that it's not a big downpour but just a sort of mist of continual rain, a smur. And it just sounds exactly the way it feels, those soggy days when the rain comes all the way through your outfit, right down into your sock, and you're just like, oh, a smur. That's probably my favourite word right now. Okay, Claire asks, what comes first, the words or the pictures? And I'd have to say that both really are developed together for me. The words are, I would say probably I start with an idea and maybe a place that I would like the book to be set, and I'll start doing some drawings and developing the kind of the visual sense of the book, and then I will maybe develop some characters and the way they look, and then I'll start writing alongside these pictures and kind of developing the sense of the character's voice, and then that will in turn affect how I draw the character and back and forth. So really I develop both of them together, and I'd say that's quite important, especially within picture books, that one isn't more important than the other, because really both tell the whole story. Sometimes in certain books words can seem like king and the pictures are an afterthought, and I think both need to work together to tell the complete story, and that's definitely when I am developing a story how I work. I go back and forth between the words and the pictures until it's working really nicely together. Okay, yeah, so I think that maybe covers it. It's been so nice to have you here in my studio, albeit digitally. Hopefully next year we'll all be meeting in person, but I hope you find it interesting to be here in my studio and in the park with me today, and thank you for listening. Have a good day.